Hello, sports fans. Welcome on in. It is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join our show today. Lots of fun today. Fun stuff. Oh boy. Let's see. I got Herman Moore on. This will be fun. Herman's a great one of the best wide receivers ever in the NFL, former teammate. He's going to be on the show today. Mike Tomlin got fired, and a whole bunch more. I guess players are now booing fans. So that's going to be a fun topic to get into as well. And thank you for joining the show. Like us and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Let's get right into it. Okay, Mike Tomlin, after 19 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers, is no longer with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Am I shocked? Yes. I'm 1,000% shocked at this. 1,000%. This goes against everything I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have been as an organization for decades upon decades. This was a franchise back in the 60s that couldn't get out of its own way, didn't know what they had in Johnny Unitas, and he sat and played with the Rooney kids. And of course they just hit gold. And I think they've hit gold for, again, decades. They've found ways to win with different people, different coaches, different styles. And it really, every single head coach the Pittsburgh Steelers have hired has won a Super Bowl, at least, which is remarkable. I mean, I know, I wish people understood how challenging it is just to win a Super Bowl, but this has been a franchise, and they've done it with this patience. They've done it with keeping continuity, consistency. I mean, it really should tell everyone around the whole entire world of NFL football that patience, I don't want to say kindness, because I don't know the NFL is kind, but it's this patience, this, seeing the long game, having something that, you can kind of build on and build around. And, when you're trying to figure something out in life, you like to have a constant, right? Like the North Star is always the North Star. We know where it is. And so you can work off of that. When you're always changing the North Star or where it is, you don't know if you're coming or going. And quite frankly, that was my experience with the Detroit Lions. We had we had great players, we had great personnel people, we had great coaches, we had all of these things, but for some reason they couldn't just grab hold of a North Star and just say, this is it. This is what we're going to place our future on. Or maybe they put their North Star in the wrong people or the wrong direction. Who knows? But I don't think they ever really understood what their North Star was. And I don't think a lot of organizations in the NFL know what that is. Now, the Lions have seemed to grab into a positive or an anchored spot, and they stuck with it. And what I experienced was the reaction of the fans or the public perception of things, just almost the mob rule kind of ruled the day. And it was like, before I got to the line, well, we need a quarterback. So they brought me in there. And then it's like, well, we need a more disciplined coach. So we'll, Wayne Fonts is too nilly-willy, too loosey-goosey, too much in the favor of the players. And then you talk to people and they go, it's a player's game. It's about, gosh, excuse me today. It's a player's game. And it's like, yeah, you got to, you have to, what the players want and the players win. It's, it's how it is, which I believe is the case to a certain extent. I think the players who you have the players, but you also have a structure, you have an organization, because I think players want that. I know I did. I want to know where I stand. I want to know what the plan is, what the vision is. How are we going about this? If you talk about Tom Moore, talked about I want answers. Just give me the answers to situations. Do we have an answer for this? And I think that's what most people want. And so then of course the Lions said, well, we need a discipline coach. And so then you get this guy in and he goes, Bobby Ross, and his whole philosophy is like, we're going to run the football. We're going to power football. And you had Barry Sanders in the backfield, and Barry goes, no, I don't even have the word power in my vocabulary. I didn't know what that means. I'm like, I'm a free spirit. I'm a guy that's very elusive and runs on the edges and doesn't like to run in between the tackles. And so then they gear up the team for that, and then Bobby Ross, that doesn't work out, and they need to have a former player come in and be the general manager, and of course that was Matt Millen, and Matt Millen, who was a great player, great broadcaster. I think Matt Millen, quite frankly, when he went into the Lions, his broadcasting career kind of, I don't know if it tanked or just went away or whatever, hasn't really been the same since. And it's unfortunate because he's just a tremendous broadcaster, but but he wasn't a good GM. Now, whether he was or he wasn't, he was just in a bad look. When you draft 3 wide receivers in a row in the first round for 3 years in a row, not a good thing. I mean, I'm not a genius, but that's not a good thing. And so the reaction is a player as the GM, and there have been a lot of players that have been phenomenally successful. Ozzie Newsome was brilliant. John Elway did a tremendous. John Lynch is doing a phenomenal job. Dwight Clark actually. I don't know if he's ever the GM, but Dwight Clark was really good for the 49ers. So there have been a lot of players. So it's not a good idea. But it's just kind of the Lions just made all these choices. And then it's like, well, let's get more of a, a Bill Walsh disciple. So they hire Steve Mariucci, who inherited um, a kind of heavy run. So the personnel never really matched up the coach. So they're always just chasing stuff. And my point is that's my point, is that this consistency that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had has been really something that I think everyone in the NFL should look at. So when Mike Tomlin steps down, now we all know that people just don't step down. Look at Kyle Whittingham and the University of Utah. It just doesn't happen. So there's more to it. And the world of sports, for the most part, everyone takes the high road. I learned early on in my career in the NFL, don't burn your bridges, so because these coaches and players and they may be your coach today, they may not, but they probably are going to be again tomorrow down the road. And so everyone says step down. Everyone says, oh, it's just been a tremendous opportunity here. I've loved all of this. And I think it's kind of BS, right? Because that's what we are. This is down and dirty. We tell it how it is. And because I'll tell you why it's BS. These owners, these coaches, everyone involved, massively competitive. And by the way, they all think that they're the reason why this has been so good. Like, without me, this is not going to happen. I'll tell you the time when I think they kind of opened the kimono, so to speak. And that was Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Like, Jimmy, like, it wasn't, I'm stepping down. It was it was like, I hate him and he hates me, and I'm the reason we're winning, and the other guy says I'm the reason we're winning. And the reality is it was all of them together. But it was just a perfect example of kind of it didn't end gracefully. Now, for whatever reason, Mike Tomlin's had a tremendous run with the Steelers. The Steelers have had a tremendous run, period. But they haven't won. I mean, really, it's it's an organization that is used to winning and will eventually win and probably will win sometime down the road. And so Mike Tomlin has done a tremendous job. I just think of organizations that said, we would take 10 wins, no losing seasons for a long time. Unfortunately, there's a very short shelf life with NFL fans, with NFL owners, and there is a lack of patience. It just is. I find this all fascinating because if you looked at this from a percentage, 32 teams in the league, you have a 1 in 32 chance every year to win. Now, that if there's a really good team and they're kind of on a roll like the Kansas City Chiefs, then I think it diminishes your odds because you have to overcome them. And are you good enough? And do you have enough players? Can you stay healthy? Can you do all these things? And there's so many factors that play into it. If there's a really good team, the injuries, all this stuff. So my point is, it's really hard to win. I think of my time as a player, 12 years in the NFL, and I was on some really good teams, and injuries just depleted those. I think of the 1993 Miami Dolphins. We were a loaded team, great team, and it was like every single week, a player got injured, another player got injured, another player got injured, and by the time we got to the end of the season, we were 9-2. I think 9-2, just beat the Cowboys. Remember the Leon Lett? Just beat the Cowboys, and we had 5 games to go and lost all 5 games. So it's hard. It's hard, and there's so much that goes into this, and I think that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers understand, and I wonder if they understand it because they lost, early on. They were a really struggling franchise, and they were like, "This is kinda," and I don't think they've ever, um, lost that, or they've always had an appreciation for winning and a lot of how what goes into winning, but Mike Tomlin stepping down, to me, is an absolutely big surprise. It 100%. Now, um, oh boy, was it time for Mike Tomlin to go? I mean, it's a hard thing because people always ask the question about like players. Did he stay too long? Because you have Aaron Rodgers there, and Aaron Rodgers is kind of at the end of his career. I had a really good conversation with Tony Agno, my former agent, who's been in the NFL for decades, over 40 years, and he said, put the tape on. Put the tape on 10 years ago and put it on right now. Where are you? Are you the same player? Is it different? And with a player, and my feeling is like, it's never time to go. Like, you just go when they finally tell you to go. So, and I think the Steelers told Mike Tomlin to go, but this is such a unique profession. It's one that's so hard to play in, to win in, as we're talking about. And I'm just, I know a lot of people are like, nah, don't embarrass yourself. You need to exit the game, with grace and dignity and all these things. And maybe you have something left in the tank. And I'm like, forget that. You have the rest of your life for whatever, but you have a window. You have right now to play in the NFL. And so do it and go as long as you possibly can, as long as you possibly want to do. And I'll just tell you, when it's over, you're still not going to be happy about it. I remember an interview with Joe Montana, who said, "Man, I think I left too early. I wish, I would have come back to Kansas City for a year or two long." We were pretty close there, and I think every player feels it. If you watch a player when they retire, when they get the privilege of retiring, quite frankly, a lot of players don't. A lot of players are just, yeah, we don't want you anymore. But when a player actually says, "I'm done," I'm stepping down, and maybe the team, encourages that, they all cry. They all cry. They all just like, it's been the most incredible experience of my life. It's been unbelievable. And quite frankly, that's how it was for me. I remember I couldn't control that I was crying. I just loved the game so much. I had an incredible experience with it. I lived a childhood dream, and so it was hard. No matter when the time is that you should go. Should you go? Should you not go? Is it time to go? I don't know that it's ever time to go. I'm trying to think in my brain, like what situation, was one where, I mean, I look at Dick Vermeil, you look at all these coaches, look at Urban Meyer, who, just really kind of emotional coaches, put a lot into who they are, their programs, and then they go, "Man, I'm burned out. My health isn't good and all this," and so they quit. And then they go on television for a few years and they go, "I can't quit. It's like in my blood." It's just, Kyle Whittingham at Utah steps down, and he's always said, "I'm not gonna coach forever." And then all of a sudden, Michigan goes, "Hey, we're interested in you." And he goes, "You know what? I don't think I'm that old." And how can you fault anyone in any of those situations? I don't fault anyone. I don't begrudge anyone as long as they want to play. As long as someone is willing to pay you and provide an opportunity for you, I say go and do it. I just do. It's just one of those things that happen. Now, one of the questions I've been asked is about Aaron Rodgers, and did Aaron Rodgers have any kind of impact on this decision? And it's a funny thing with Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is kind of a tough situation, and you see a lot of players that are really good and they get older and they have a lot of respect, they have a lot of clout, they have a lot of cachet, whatever that means. I think of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning goes to the Broncos, and there comes a point of this diminishing return. Peyton Manning, by the time they won the last Super Bowl, it wasn't because of Peyton Manning, it was in spite of him. They just had a phenomenal defense at the Broncos. And so as you start moving around, as you start aging out, that influence and that power diminishes as well. And I think that's kind of the situation with Aaron Rodgers with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's like, he had a good enough year to get him into the playoffs. He didn't have a good enough year to win in the playoffs. Um, how many more years is it for him? And I think as an organization, you're looking at long-term, stability. And quite frankly, I think Aaron Rodgers was the best pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers with what was available this year. I'm trying to think of anyone they now. I'll tell you someone who they possibly could have picked, was Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford kinda had a chance to go out on the open market. Aaron Rodgers was not an early signee for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers had the option and the opportunity to go seek trades, find other people in free agency. I know that they were interested in Aaron. I think they'd gone the route of Justin Fields, and they just said that we don't feel like he's that long-term solution for us. Russell Wilson, the same thing. So I think Aaron Rodgers was absolutely the best person for the Steelers for this last year, and that's what they got. They got the very best they had of what they had available, I think. So I don't think Aaron Rodgers was a disappointment. I don't think Aaron Rodgers was something that they regretted, or I don't think they thought was a bad choice. I think he was actually quite good. It felt like he and Mike Tomlin got along well, and so I don't think this was a situation where you go, "Oh yeah, that's really that's a bad thing to have happen." Now, um, oh boy, who coaches the Pittsburgh Steelers? If you kind of look at the history of the Steelers, it tends to be, you think of Chuck Noll, who was an assistant. You think of Bill Cowher, who was an assistant. You think of Mike Tomlin, who was an assistant, and I think that's kind of been the MO of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't see the Steelers going out and getting a retread. I'll tell you a guy. This will sound funny, but Mike McCarthy's a Pittsburgh guy, and it would buck the trend of what the Steelers are about. Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl. He's had a lot of success. He's a well-respected coach, but I don't know that that's the Steelers' MO. It always feels like maybe it's Brian Flores. Maybe it's, an up and coming defensive coordinator, because they kind of it's kind of their MO. They play tough, rough defense, and they get kind of that type of mentality, that kind of coach. And maybe the Steelers go, "Hey, wait just a minute. Okay, the NFL has kind of evolved and changed." And I think that these offensive coordinators, these young guys, the Ben Johnson type of guys, would fit the bill. The challenge with the Steelers, and it's the biggest challenge they have, is where do they find their quarterback? Who's the guy that leads them for the next 15 years, really? And I don't think they have that guy. And so hopefully they can find that guy moving forward. But I don't know who it is, but it feels like it's a hot young assistant, someone that fits the mode of who the Steelers are. I don't even know why I said Mike McCarthy, only because he's a Pittsburgh guy. It just popped into my head, and I say that like my intuition maybe knows something, maybe it doesn't. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, they let go of their offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo, and he was fired. But there's a possibility that he could stay in as as a different position coach, and I think that's kind of awkward. It's like I fired you, but I haven't really fired you, and I because coaches are so much about loyalty. If you're and maybe that's a sign of loyalty. I'm stripping you of your title, of your responsibility, of your duties. I mean, that's what Dan Campbell did with the Detroit Lions, and I think it creates division, and I think it creates a lot of confusion. I'm always fascinated by all these coaches. They hire these guys, and you're around them like all the time. And these coaches know each other, and I think that's why coaches tend to pick guys that they like because they don't want to go, okay, there's this hot young guy. I mean, I'll give you an example. Brian Billick, he was the hottest NFL assistant in the world, and he goes and wins a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens. I played for Brian for a year in Baltimore, and he was this guru, right? He was the this offensive genius. And I had a hard time in his offense. It was very challenging, and I didn't see the genius in it, quite frankly. And listen, I was coached by Don Shula, and we had an incredible offense, and I know how it was run. Tom Moore, who we had on the program the other day, incredible offense, and we were record setting with the offense that Tom Moore coached for 49 years, 48 years in the NFL. And it was he coached over 60 years, 49 in the NFL, 48 in the NFL. Sorry. He just keeps getting older by the minute. And so I saw how that system was, but the point is you have these coaches and they get these labels but when you get in and you look under the hood and you spend time with them in an office and in a situation, where you're around them every day and meetings and practice and games and see how they handle games, and you go, yeah, this guy's a little different than as advertised. And so I think it's hard because I'm always like, um, why do you have to fire these guys? And I think it's so much better for these coaches if they do a better job hiring, or a lot of them just go, "This is the guy I know. This is what I'm comfortable with. I know what I'm getting here, and I'm good with it." You look at a guy like Andy Reid and Steve Spagnano, and it's a guy that he trusts, and he likes, and so he doesn't have to worry about it. And I just think firing a guy, but saying, "Yeah, you can, here, you're the offensive coordinator, now go do special teams or go be the running back coach or go be the wide receiver coach." And maybe, uh, Kevin Patullo is just going, "I'm just happy to be here. I'll have a job. I don't care. I'll swallow my pride. I'll do whatever I have to do." I think it's very awkward. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? Um, well, we're going to take a break. So we come back. We're going to talk a little bit about which is a harder position to be a coordinator on offense or defense. And also, we're going to talk more about this quarterback coach relationship or player coach relationship, and how much does it play into whether a coach gets fired or how that all works, and so much more. I got Herman Moore, by the way, coming up in just a minute. So stick around. This is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us on our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Welcome to Kitbag, the ultimate destination for football fans. Whether you're cheering for Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, or any other top club, we've got your team's colors running through our veins. From official replica kits to custom player prints of your favorite stars like Ronaldo, Messi, and Kane, Kitbag is your one-stop shop for all things football. Powered by Fanatics, we deliver to over 180 countries, ensuring you get the gear you need fast. For true football passion, think Kitbag. Visit kitbag.com today. That's KITBAG.com. Kitbag.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Hey, sports fans, welcome back. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. Oh, wow. So much fun. So happy to have you a part of what we're doing. And of course, Baltimore Ravens, they fired their coach. The owner of the Ravens said, look, I kind of went with my instinct on this one. And you're kind of like, oh, okay. And then of course the Ravens are like, Lamar Jackson's going to get a new deal by March, which is probably related to, cap and how it impacts the cap and all those things. And then it brings up this question, because there always felt like there was this situation with the Ravens where it just didn't feel like there was this cohesiveness between Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. And I've been in those situations where, does the coach like you and does he not like you? And I remember when I was in Detroit and Wayne Fontes was fired, and then they bring in a new coach. And I remember meeting Bobby Ross for the first time, and I after I left the meeting, I remember calling my dad on the phone and just, he's like, hey, how'd it go? And I said, I don't think it went very well. And I said, I don't think this guy likes me. And it just never felt good from the very beginning. And so and you look at these coaches, and I've been envious of this in my career, like a guy like Brett Favre, right? So Brett Favre goes to the Green Bay Packers. By the way, Jerry Glanville didn't like Brett Favre. I mean, I just think it's the funniest thing in the world. He just didn't like Brett Favre when he was drafted, and he clearly didn't like him, and they were happy to get rid of Brett Favre. And so Brett Favre goes to the Green Bay Packers, and Mike Holmgren says very famously, we're in this together. You and me, Favre, we're in this together, and we're either going to go down or this is going to be a good thing, but we're in this together. And I just remember thinking, boy, that would have just been a lovely thing. If just a lovely thing to have a coach that actually got behind you. And you look at a lot of these new coaches that are going to these quarterback situations, and you're like, a lot of why they're picking these jobs is because of the quarterback. And so Martin, I'm curious. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Am I overthinking this? Am I overreacting to this? Does it really matter? Does the coach and the quarterback have to actually be like best buddies and kumbaya and or does it even matter?
No, I think there's got to be some kumbaya. I don't know if they got to be best friends planning dinner
Do you know,
dates for.
do you know what kumbaya means?
Yeah, you got to,
Okay.
kumbaya, my lord,
Yeah, yeah,
kumbaya.
yeah. Okay. By that singing, I can tell you know what it means. Yes. Anyways, continue.
No, I think there's got to be some connectivity between a coach and a quarterback. We talked about it yesterday. That's why Brian Flores got fired out of Miami. Him and Tua just were at odd ends and fighting against each other. We've seen it with other quarterbacks throughout the entire NFL history of just not syncing on the same page. I saw a video this morning. Steve Bisciotti, who's the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, was asked by the media, "Hey, if your kicker makes a field goal against Pittsburgh, is John Harbaugh still your head coach?" He's like, "Only for a week." Like it was determined before the end of that game that John Harbaugh was going to be let go, that they were going to go in a new direction, that Lamar Jackson won the power struggle, and that to me says enough that whatever happened in that locker room between Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh and who has say to the ownership, the one who got fired was the one that lost that power struggle, who lost the voice, who lost the ability to convince the ownership that I am the right guy and that this guy needs to leave. And Lamar Jackson's still staying in Baltimore.
Yeah, you could just tell, right? You could just like you could see body language. You could see from both, from John Harbaugh, from Lamar. Then of course the offensive coordinator comes out and says, "Look, I did a poor job with Lamar. I didn't do it. I didn't have the kind of relationship with him. It looked like Lamar Jackson was just very disinterested. I mean, Lamar Jackson is an MVP type of player in the NFL, and he has just some unbelievable talent and traits as a player that are hard to defend. And whenever he has the ability to both run and pass, which he does, it's almost unstoppable. And how you can't really totally embrace this and get this, I think is a very challenging. And he's a very challenging player to figure out, but if you unlock that, boy, you've really found something. And I think there's a lot of players that are that way. I'm thinking of, because Herman Moore is coming on our show here in a bit, and Herman was really tall, 6'4", and he liked to be covered. And so but he was unbelievably good at being covered and still being open, which is, it's almost one of those things where you go, no matter what, you're always open. Like that's what receivers always say. I'm always open, but he really was open. And as a player, as a quarterback, you go, well, that doesn't look open to me, so you're not open. And so you had to learn how he had this unique talent and how to work with it. And Lamar Jackson, very similar type of player. Another teammate of mine, Barry Sanders, same thing. He was a unique talent. He wasn't a traditional type of running back. And if you utilize Barry Sanders to his strength, then that's when magic happened. And of course, Tom Moore, we had on the show, that's what happened there. And there's always, I look at Coach Shula and he had Larry Zonka and Kick and Mercury Morris and so it was a play action ball control, a tremendous defense. And then when he got Dan Marino, he goes, "Why would I ever want to take the ball out of Dan Marino's hands?" And so he ended up throwing the ball a lot when Marino came onto the scene. But it's understanding kind of the talent you have and really getting the most out of it. Brett, as we talked about, Brett Favre was not Joe Montana. He wasn't even Steve Young. He wasn't the prototypical West Coast style quarterback. He was a wild, loose cannon gunslinger. And they embraced that with Brett Favre, and they just said, "There's something here that is talented. We can win with it, and let's go with it." And figuring all of that out, and so it's a real thing to me about owners, about the challenge they have with and coaches and meshing a coach and a player together, because some coaches are just like, this is my system, this is who I am, this is what I do, and you have to conform to what I'm doing, or that's it. And there, I think of a guy like Tom Coughlin when he was with the Giants, and he kind of had that, and he was tough, and he was, and his way of coaching was tough. It was tough-minded. Not that that's a bad thing, but then he had guys, like Michael Strahan, and there had to be some compromise there. And to Tom Coughlin's credit, there was some compromise, and they go and they win a Super Bowl. So I don't think that it's I'm more of a feel for a guy that says, look, I'm going to try to figure out how to get you as a player, your talent, your ability on the field to shine the most. That's my job, is to figure out how to do that, and not just say, because if you're a guy that just says, this is my system, then you have to really bring in players that fit into that system. And and maybe you could argue that a Bill Parcells was good at that he, but I think Parcells was even, he would adjust. But I look at like, and I'm not saying one style or one mentality is better than the other one, because when Tom Brady had his success with the New England Patriots, it was pretty much the same thing, and Belichick said, you look at all the different players they had, the Wes Welkers, the Julian Edelman type of players in that slot, the different tight ends they had, and the different, Z receiver that they had. They had Chad Johnson and Randy Moss and different guys. You think of different guys they had in the backfield. You think same thing on defense. They went Rodney Harrison, Malloy, and they were different names, but they were a type, and he liked that, and that fit for him. And so he kind of brought in the players that fit his system. Some coaches just go, man, this dude is massively talented, which Lamar Jackson is. And so I think when they decide to have a new coach, right, that the new coach is going to come in and he's going to go, okay, how do I work with Lamar Jackson? And that's probably the biggest question I think someone's going to have when they come into the Baltimore Ravens. And quite frankly, I think the Baltimore Ravens job should be one of the most sought after jobs in the NFL. I mean, this is a team that's been winning for a long time. They're in a division that's very winnable, and they have a very, very good, talented quarterback who is not even close to the end of his career. So that's one of those plug and play situations you can really do well with. All right, let's take another break. Oh, go ahead. Do you have another thought there, Mark?
I was just going to wrap that up and say I agree with you. It's a situation in Baltimore that should be very easy to flip and be successful in, and it really shouldn't take a whole lot of energy to figure out how to turn that team into a 12-win team.
Yeah, it really shouldn't. And so, and that the question is, why does Mike McCarthy's name keep coming up in my head? And he shouldn't. But gosh, I mean, what if it's Mike Tomlin? I mean, would that not be the funniest of all funny things to have happen? It's a very NFL thing to have happen.
Yeah, it is.
Anytime you can kind of stick it to whomever in a very positive way, like Ben Johnson kind of sticking it to the Packers. Yeah, it's not the first time nor the last that would happen, and that would just be that would be priceless. Mike Tomlin to the Baltimore Ravens. That's what we want. Yeah. Okay, let's take a break. We come back. Hey, Giannis. I guess the Bucks were getting blown out, and he started booing, folks. I love it, and we're going to talk about that and so much more when the Down and Dirty returns here on YouTube.
Circulon C1 Series Clad with Scratch Defense Non-Stick. The luxury and confidence of premium clad stainless steel meets Scratch Defense Extreme Non-Stick that won't scratch, ever. With an ultra-thick aluminum core for high-performance heating. Maximize cooking, minimize cleaning. Discover the unmatched durability and elegance of clad stainless steel. Scratch-free, worry-free, forever.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com. The grinder mentality that Randy and Brent Habert built into 44 Pro runs deep within our team. Every member shares a passion for the craft, the game, and most importantly, the player. When you step onto the field with a 44 Pro custom glove, you'll feel the difference. It's not just a glove, it's a 44 Pro. Crafted with dedication, made for performance, and built to last. Get your custom glove today at 44pro.com and experience the 44 Pro difference. That's 44pro.com, 44 Pro.
At Mapiful, we believe in celebrating your journey, past, present, and future. Our unique personalized products are designed to boost your confidence, elevate creativity, and honor what matters most. From custom home decor to meaningful gifts, we help you cherish the memories that make you who you are. Visit mapiful.com and start celebrating your story today.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join our show. Please like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. Been fun conversations about coaches and players and all that stuff, and players and coaches. A very interesting thing happened in the NBA. The NBA is starting to get interesting. We get through the pain that is the All-Star weekend. I'm just telling you, go international, pit country against country. You'll have the best All-Star game you could imagine. Otherwise it's a non-watchable thing. The slam dunk isn't any fun anymore. 3-point, all the corny things they do, just, do something very, very, entertaining, which is play competitive basketball. It's just kind of that simple. At your All-Star game, play competitive basketball. That's all we want to see. Speaking of competitive basketball, Giannis, decided that he was going to let the fans have it. The Bucks were losing. Of course, they're booing, and he gave it right back to him. Here's what happened with Giannis.
To force an outside long contested two.
Wesley, things are already looking up. I don't know why. McDaniels had his first miss.
There it is.
Of the game.
Hopefully
6 of 7. Count the bucket. A message to the five-star fans who are displeased with this team's efforts in the first half.
There you have it. Giannis giving it to the fans, and I think it's an interesting phenomenon, and I think it's kind of getting different than back in an era when I played. Like, it seems that the players are engaging more with the fans. You think of DK Metcalf and just saying, I've had enough of this. I think it's very prevalent in the NBA now, players going into the stands more with fans, actually having fans removed, that, the comments allegedly are extremely derogatory. I think of, I think it got really bad in the NBA to some degree. It's a different dynamic than football because you're, number one, you don't have a helmet on. You're not protected. You're not, people don't really see your facial expressions. It's almost like there's this invisible shield where you don't have to kind of have that connection to fans, where in basketball, it's probably the most intimate of all the sports we have in the relationship between the fans and the players. They're right there. The players fly into the stands during timeouts. There's interaction. You think of the very famous interactions with Spike Lee and Reggie Miller, and just some of the stuff that's gone on through the years. And yet now it seems that there's this players just kind of took it as like, hey, look, this is just kind of how it is, right? It's just the fans pay to they pay to have a voice. They pay to complain if they want to complain. And it's like, but as a player, you're like, so you're just supposed to take it, and you're just kind of supposed to just let it roll, just kind of, roll your eyes at it or whatever you do. And you don't interact. You don't have any impact from it. And I see players, you see Giannis, and you see a lot of players today that just go, I'm not taking it. I'm not going to just sit here, and I'm not going to pretend that nothing happens and all of these things. And it reminded me of my experience. And this was hard. And so I think the question to me is, are the players reacting to this because it bothers them? Are the players reacting to this because they, have lost their mind? They've lost their focus, or they, what? Are they reacting to it so that they acknowledge and recognize that it has an impact on them, right? Because that's what the fans want to have happen. Especially, I mean, you go to an away game, it's one thing, but when you get booed at home, then it gets really personal, and that's what happened to me. And it was, we would get introduced before the game, and I wasn't really thrilled about getting introduced. So they have your name, you run out onto the field, and you hear boo, this is at a home game, and it's shocking to me um how the fans were about this, because we weren't bad. Like there were Lions teams that went 0-16. We made the playoffs. We were good we led the league in offense. And we were explosive. We won. And now for whatever reason, that was not acceptable. That was not good enough. And it blows my mind to this day about all of that. And so for me, it's like I'm trying to block this out. And look, everyone can tell you, oh, I don't hear the boos, I don't pay attention to that stuff. And you really are focused on your job, you're focused on what you're doing. But when you go out in the introductions and you get booed before the game even starts, it affects you. And it affected me. Like it was very disappointing. It was like, gosh, because we all want to be liked. We all want to be, oh, this is great. Now when Barry Sanders came out, the stadium, was doing cartwheels. They were erupting in just, adulation and all of this stuff. And I think what's hard for people, and I know the way I looked at it was, I'm putting my heart and soul in this. I'm into this. I want to win as bad, if not worse. I know worse than anyone here. And I'm laying it on the line every single week, and putting my body through all these challenging things, and the preparation and all the stuff that goes into it. It's not like you're just going, yeah, I'm not doing anything. And so it's hard, and it's personal, and it impacts you. And everyone pretends like it doesn't, or they're just like, whatever. But it does impact you, and it does have, and it was hard. It was hard for me to actually continue, to stay focused, just all right, because it's one thing on the road. Like you almost want to embrace the booing because you're the hated team, right? You're the and I was always just like, would blow my mind. It's like, okay, you're trying to help us win. That's what your fans do. They make noise. And when you're getting introduced, and the opposing team hears that they're booing the home team, they're like, oh man, we got it. They don't even like their team. They don't even like players on their team. And I think it all of a sudden psychologically is a benefit to the opposing team. Never really understood it. And I don't get it. So Martin, please help me understand fans booing, and especially their home team, And what's the value in that, and what's the purpose, especially on a team like Giannis is one of the best players in the NBA. Why are fans so bent on booing?
I think there's one thing to it is that the high ticket prices, obviously paying all that money to come see the players, and they don't show up or they don't perform to the way that you expect them to, according to the ticket prices, is one reason. Two, I think specifically for Milwaukee is the fact that the last 3 seasons, there's been all these rumors about Giannis wanting to get traded. Giannis is going to get traded to this team, to that team. He's going to go to New York, San Antonio, to the Thunder, to the Clippers, to the Lakers, to the Warriors, to Miami. The fact is that, it's every day, Milwaukee Bucks fans wake up thinking to themselves, is today the day we lose our superstar? Is today the day we lose the guy that won us an NBA championship, that put us back on the map, that put some respect behind the Bucks organization? And the fact is, they're kind of tired playing teeter totter, and so take it out on Giannis. I think is a bit of a reasonable understanding, but at the same time, I don't believe Giannis deserves that because. Again, he's won an NBA championship. He won the Finals MVP. He's been in MVP conversations. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. He has been legitimately the face of the franchise, and he deserves the respect. But also, the fans believe that if their voice needs to be heard, and that's the way they do it. And I got to give Giannis credit for him to, kind of, give it right back to the fans. It's funny, if they're going to be petty back. And if it's an enjoyment for him, so be it. I think I think it's a fair way to go about it.
With you bring up a couple good points here, but one I just in my mind, every time I think of Giannis, I think of dunking Oreos in milk. Like he when he figured that out, and he's like, this is amazing, because he's from Greece, and he kind of got indoctrinated into culture in the United States, and I guess dunking Oreos in milk is a cultural thing here. It is good, by the way, and it is the only way to eat Oreos, in my opinion. But I think there's this whole, because you talked about he may not be there, right? And so that's a whole new conversation, or a new part of the conversation, because it's kind of about, well, do fans have the right to boo, and what kind of impact does it have on players? And because if I'm a fan, and I'm going to get into this idea of Giannis not being there, but I want to share this thought first. When if I'm a fan, you know what I want to boo? I want to boo load management. Like it's like if it's like, if you're sitting here deciding about who to boo, so you're a fan, you talk about paying all this money, you go to a game, you have your team you're cheering for, but there's also the visiting team, and part of why you come to this game is you want to see other great players on other teams. You show up at this game, and the great players sitting on the bench in street clothes, because it's he's milking a calf injury, or he's trying to deal with a tender ankle or something like that, or he got booed in last night's game, and so he's just emotionally not capable of being available tonight. That's who I'm going to boo. I'm not going to boo the guys that are out there giving it, all they have and all that stuff. I'm booing that guy. I'm booing the guy that says, yeah, it's like, come on, show up and play. That's what I boo. But the other part that you brought up that I think is interesting is this whole concept of the trade deadline, or because that's around the corner. That's coming up in the NBA. And so there's always a lot of discussion about that. And it does impact play. I remember a couple of situations with the Utah Jazz where Ricky Rubio, who was playing for the Jazz and doing quite a nice job, and it got leaked that they were looking to trade Ricky Rubio. And you just could see his demeanor and how he played, knowing that I'm not even really going to be here. And so I think that this whole idea of potential trades and the trade deadline looming, I think that also not only does it impact like the fans, and the fans are sitting there going, you don't want to be here, or you're going somewhere else, or boo on you. Giannis, but from the players' perspective, they go, well, I'm out here every night, giving it my all. I love the city. I love my teammates. I love where we are. I love what we're doing. And this team doesn't want me. And I think it can kind of impact the way you're playing, and the effort of play. Cause there was another situation that happened with the Jazz, and that was at the end of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And at the time, they had a new owner, of course, comes in, Ryan Smith, and he brings in Danny Ainge. So Danny Ainge is in the building, and all Danny Ainge does is just watch, right? He's sitting at games. He's sitting one row up behind the bench, and he's just watching players' demeanors. He's watching the game. He's got his baseball cap on, and he's got, his elbow on his knee and his hand in his chin, and he's just watching, and you could see that the whole team like was on pins and needles, and they were all just they just were in the tank almost. And it's just like, what's Danny Ainge going to do? What's going to happen with this team? And of course, they were rightfully concerned about it, because he just ripped it apart, took the Band-Aid off, and said, Gobert, you're gone. Mitchell, you're gone. And they, they're still trying to figure out how to win right now. Now, I had a situation about booing that I wanted to tell this story, because it's just, I don't think, I guess the question is as a player, because it feels like Giannis kind of won, I guess, in this, but as a player reacting to fans, do you ever really win? I'm asking you that question. Is it worth your while as a player to acknowledge it, or to just kind of roll your eyes and just move on when fans boo you?
I think it's both. I think you gotta, kind of shrug it off your shoulders and kind of just take the grain of salt with it. But also, I think you have to acknowledge it at some points. But it's the way you acknowledge it. It's either in the media or with your game or with how you interact with fans. It's how you demeanor yourself in a mature way. And I think that's all in the respect that these athletes and how much they're getting paid these days, and how they're looked at, and how they're, the superhero, mentality of how much more pressure they have to carry on their shoulders. There's a way to do it, and there's players who have done it the right way, and there's players who have done it the wrong way. I mean, obviously, we've seen that before. Some players have no problem going to the media saying the fans have treated me horribly, I want out. And others say, hey, you know what? I'll deal with it. I'll prove them wrong. We'll win championships. We'll win this. We'll win that. And you know what? Let's see what happens when the dust settles.
All right. I thought I handled it the right way. And I was asked the question that, because the reporters, when I was in Detroit, they go, how does it make you feel that you get booed? and I wanted to say, well, it sucks. It's horrible. It's terrible. I don't like it, which is what I felt, but I didn't. And so I tried to give a very kind, diplomatic answer. And they kind of very cheaply, the media took a portion of my answer and spun the narrative. And so I said, look, I think the fans here are passionate. They're like some of the best sports fans in the world. I get the passion. I think the boos come out as part of that passion, and they want what I want. They want to win a championship. And so I for me, it's like, I appreciate that they're, that it's their way of expressing their hope that we win a championship. And I know there's a lot of fans that support what I do and am, and quite frankly, it's probably some people that are just a little too drunk, and they're just kind of, hey, just letting loose and everything. And so I'm not really too concerned about a few drunk fans. So, I don't really care about a few drunk fans, something to that nature. And so all they put on television was, well, how do you feel about being booed? And I said, I don't care what a bunch of drunk fans think. Right. And so I'm just like, you can't win for trying to give a very good, well thought out answer and whatever. And so I was like, I don't think you can win. All right, we're going to take a break. What's happening on the show coming up next is why I didn't sleep last night. I'm so excited. Herman Moore, the great legendary wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, and a guy who was always open. We'll explain that and more when the Down and Dirty returns here with Scott Mitchell.
You probably get unwanted emails almost every single day.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Have you ever wondered why so many pet parents are choosing to have virtual vet appointments? Online veterinary care is making it easier than ever to get expert advice for your pet. Our professionals are not only experts in managing urgent concerns, but also in providing top-notch preventative health care. We're proud to connect pet owners to a vast network of licensed veterinary professionals, ready to address any immediate concerns and expand access to pet care. Book your first appointment today.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome on in. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join our show. We have a great time every day. The best part about our day is when we have guests on, and we have my favorite guest in the entire world, Herman Moore, legendary NFL wide receiver, longtime Detroit Lion. I'm telling you, this guy was always open, and once you figured out that he was always open, it was always fun to throw him the football. Herman, welcome to the Down and Dirty. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. I was going to say my captain, but my QB. How you doing, man?
As I said earlier, I'm living the dream. It's not a nightmare, at least not yet. So I don't have a lot to complain about. I understand that I've been trolling you recently. So you've been doing these trading card things and signing helmets, and apparently I keep showing up in these events that you're going at. Please do tell.
Oh yeah, it's people will come back, and I keep telling you this, and I know you and we have some conversations here and there. But the fans, man, I think those who appreciated what you were able to do and just your professionalism, the way you carried yourself, the way you were as a quarterback is coming out more so here. As the fact that you're not here, I'll let it live vicariously through me to you. But yeah, they bring me up and go, here's something I want to give you that something that's, Scott Mitchell based. It could be a picture. It could be a card. I already got your jersey, and I got my signed Scott Mitchell jersey, and we've been, procuring and getting a lot of the highlights. I'm going, man, I look at the passes. You need to go back. I'm going to give you access to the database that Chrissy's been building, and the highlights, man, just are phenomenal.
I just go back to my youngest son when I took him to we went to a reunion. In fact, it was the time when you were inducted into the Lions Ring of Honor, and we were at a banquet, and they were showing highlights. And here's my son, who wasn't even born when I was playing, and he was watching this video, and so he'd look up at the video, and then he'd look at me, and because I'm throwing passes to Herman Moore, and he's trying to, he goes, that's you know, like, and he's like, Dad, you were like as good as Matthew Stafford, you know? And so it was just a really fun time for my son to figure that out. Now, when we left, he said, could I get a jersey? And I said, well, of course, you know, because they gave him one of my jerseys, and he said, could I get like a Herman Moore? I said, you know, like, what do you want, Herman Moore? You want Barry Sanders? What do you want? And he goes, no, I want Matthew Stafford. And he said, because he's relevant today, and my friends will think I'm cool. And so,
Oh, wow.
so I was like, all right, I hate you. You're grounded. You're grounded until you're 20.
You should have brought me in on that, man. I could have gave him a little bit of that old school discipline from down south. It'd been all right.
Yeah, he's a good kid. Zach's a good kid. So, I have to ask you first, because I'm really fascinated by this. I thought, you know, I made these predictions at the beginning of the NFL season about the Detroit Lions, and I really thought the Lions were going to kind of fly under the radar this year, and they were going to be the team. I really thought the Lions were going to go to the Super Bowl. I really did this year. So they were my pick, and it looked early on like they kind of had things going, but it just seemed to slip and slip and slip. Dan Campbell takes away the play calling duties from his offensive coordinator. What happened to the Lions this year?
I think it was just they got off to a really good start. I think injuries, you can't discount that. Every team deals with it, but the Lions, you know, they got hit in certain areas that were key. The secondary in particular, because they had a couple Pro Bowlers at safety that were going down, and then they, you know, have a first, you know, a rookie guy or a first year guy that they've been trying to get acclimated for, you know, a couple years now. And so it's been one of those deals where you seem like you're solidifying certain areas of the offense or defense, and then a key component of that goes down, and it causes you to have to shift a little bit. But on top of that, I think there wasn't the greatest of execution by this team. They fell into lulls. They didn't play complete games where they were playing, you know, for a quarter here, then they go flat, and then it's speeding back up. So it was the ups and downs, the ebb and flows of you know, just trying to get things done and get things started that caused them to have that problem. So that's, if I had to gear it down to that, it was that. And then it gets complicated when the switch happens at offensive coordinator and Coach Campbell takes over calling and play calling. And then at that point, it seemed like they really never gelled again, not due to him, but I just think they was just out of sync.
I've heard rumors, or it may have been reported that Mike McDaniel, who was fired as the head coach for the Dolphins, ended up going and interviewing with the Lions. One, is that accurate? And two, does that make sense? Would that be a good fit?
You know what? I can't confirm it, but all indications and publications and media around here stated that he was in for a visit. How well that went, I don't think that's been really talked about yet. I know he has other teams to visit with. I think it would be a good fit personally. A lot of people, the concern was, you know, you taking a former head coach and he comes into a system and he's under another head coach. How, you know, does that create an issue? I don't think it does, because there's a professionalism that happens there. You know, as a head coach, what the hierarchy is. So it's not like I think he would overstep. And if he did, that would be egregious, because he understands how the order works. But as an OC, and knowing what his past background is, and given the chemistry of this team, I think he would be a good fit personally. But it's only you have to wait till you see. You know, we played with different coordinators. You know how that works. It on the surface it could seem like the right idea, but then when you get in and you actually start working with people, we are professionals, so we know if it's a good coordinator or not. Forget what fans are saying. Forget what the media thinks. The players are going to know.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have a guy, because on one side of it, you know, when I heard this, I'm like, that'd probably be nice for Dan Campbell. You know, you have a guy who's had head coaching experience, has a lot of experience. He can really be a resource in a lot of areas. He can relate to you. He can, you know, you can talk about kind of how do you handle certain situations and dynamics and things like that. But then on the other side of it, you go, yeah, could this guy undermine me? You know, he's a guy that, you know, he's licking his wounds because he's now this former head coach, and he wants to prove himself, and he's got an axe to grind, and all of a sudden he becomes this cancer within the organization, and it's certainly one of those kind of two-edged swords type of situations. It could go either way. I think it would be a challenging thing for a head coach to kind of figure out and how to kind of weed through all of that stuff. And I've really liked Dan Campbell and loved what he's done with the Lions, and I'm just always cheering for him and of course for the Lions. But he lost Ben Johnson, lost Aaron Glenn. Was that an impact on the way the season went, and how did fans, how did coaches, how did the team react to because those are some big losses?
I think there were definitely impacts, but I want to go back real quick to one thing you were saying there. When you talk about the undermining or what may happen with a coach, think of dating, right? It's like everyone says the right things in the beginning. You come out, you've identified, hey, we have some attraction. There's an opportunity, but then you get in there, dynamics change because you really get to uncover who the people really are, and then you have to have adaptability. You have to be able to have communication, and then you got to like each other. You got to have, all those things have to work. It's the same thing. But to your point on the next two guys, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn both leaving and taking opportunities to go other places did have, I think, initially some effect because these are the guys that had the team humming. They knew the players that came in. They were part of the development process of these players. So you get to know them intimately, but you get to know them in a very defined, detailed way. So that development, what to avoid, how to make things go. You bring in someone new, they then have to kind of learn that, even if they've been in a position on the team, you don't really get to work with them at that level. And you know how that is. You work directly with your position coaches. You work directly with the OC on coordinating play calling and things of that nature and getting you set up in schemes. And when those guys left, I think they took with them some of the confidence that these players have in the event that something goes wrong, that it's going to get turned around pretty quickly. So adaptability and adjustments are key in the NFL. And I think that's what this team kind of fell behind this year with.
A lot of coaching changes, a few surprises. I was a little surprised by Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. I get, are there any coaching changes that you have seen this year that surprised you, or how did you feel about? Was it a surprise that Tomlin stepped down?
No, I think both. If you look at the AFC North, those two teams, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, both head coaches, guys that had long-standing success with their teams and organizations, have built, culture, chemistry, rapport, not only with the fan base, the organization, but the players, the expectation coming in. And, it's going to be different when you've had that tenure for that length of time. When you bring in someone else, you are starting over. And it's more than just, guys coming in to call plays and running a team. It's that whole piece that's been built over a decade plus, going on 2 decades with those two. So those were probably the two that jumped out the most. And the surprising part about that is because these are the two that will have the least concern in terms of getting employed with another team. If they wanted to go in and take over 2 head coaching jobs that are available right now, it's not going to be a second guess for them. So I don't see where the grass is greener for both teams when they look at the coaches that are available. So that in itself was more surprising than anything, because I don't see how they're going to level up and scale up from the coaches that they're letting go.
Yeah. I mean, okay, these guys have had a lot of success for a long time, and the 2 most successful teams and coaches in that division, who, by the way, played each other the last game of the year to see who made the playoffs. They're both gone right now. It just kind of blows my mind. It's like, I think of our time in Detroit, and it's like, what if we had a coach that we won at least 10 games a year, for 19 years? Would you think the Lions fans would boo that guy out of town? I mean, what I don't know. It just what is success? What kind of success, I guess, do you have, or is it ever possible to have enough success to ever stay around?
When you've won championships and you've been to the Super Bowl and you've had MVPs and all defensive player, of the year players and offensive player of the year and, perennial Pro Bowlers and all pros. That's what you're dealing with those two organizations, those teams. And then when you go in, the standard becomes look at the Super Bowl trophies, look at what it looks like and feels like to be a champion. The difference in what we had even in Detroit, we were still trying to find identity to just find stabilization. And we couldn't get that because it was always a battle between whether or not to pay players, whether or not it wasn't about keeping your best players. It was about keeping your payroll right and keeping your numbers right, and then justifying costs for people versus going through a process. And the teams that have endured that and have gone through the process and understand that you have to start and you're going to go through some rough patches, but the longer you stick with it, the more the return will be. The Lions finally caught on to that in the last few years, and they've had some other coaches that have come in that want to do that. Other organizations think they have that figured out, but when your organization is at the bottom, I can understand the volatility. But when your organization has consistently performed, and you're having coaches that have never finished under 500, or they've had 9 and 10 win plus seasons repeatedly, and anything less than that is not even remotely acceptable. Where do you go from there? And now that's going to be the question. The pressure is now going to be on the organization and those that are making these changes to that pressure coming in for the next coaches coming in is going to be high. I mean, those two jobs right there, yes, they're going to be the most coveted, but they're going to come with the biggest scrutiny, the most pressure than any. And I think Baltimore more so than Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah. Back when we played, I approached the Lions and said, can you just pay me like for the next 20 years? Like I was like trying to get creative about my situation. So you could play players, or you could, I was like, can we get creative here? Can we figure out a way to defer compensation to do something? And they claimed that you couldn't do it, but I believe there was someone in the NFL who recently actually did that. I know there's the Bobby Bonilla day where he gets $1 million for like the next 25 years or whatever. And I'd have been willing to do. I mean, I was willing because I went in and I said it, because for me it was, I wanted to win, and that was it. I mean, there was nothing more to it to me than I just wanted to win and figure out how to do it. That being said, you look at contracts today, and I want you to be honest with me. Aren't you just a little envious of players today? Like just a little bit?
I'm not so much envious of the players as much as I'm upset with the system, because it's not like all of a sudden the talent level has exploded to a level where the compensation's there.
Yeah.
I get the evolution of the sport. This has always been a multi-billion-dollar organization. The franchises have always been highly profitable, especially from the 90s going forward. When you started getting more television contracts, you started getting all these different sponsorships and partnerships and multi-year deals with a lot of your tech companies and mobile companies and media companies. So the money has been flowing for a while. The distribution of that has always gone to, the owners. It's gone to others. And building stadiums and those things, but the players in our era and even before, we didn't get to receive that. And while we had to fight for what we thought at the time, which were big dollars, it pales in comparison to now. Like a Barry Sanders contract is you're at the bottom of the barrel for the most part on most teams, and it's not even showing up on their cap number as carrying. Whereas we had to fight for those numbers. And then as you go forward, it's not so much an envy piece of the players as much as the game, I think, could have always done more. There could have been better guarantees that we fought for and those things. And because we didn't have those, I think that created locker room dissension. I think that created some uproar and some problems between players and organizations that are long lasting. Some of those are never going to heal. With players and organizations. So it's unfortunate, but now I think the careers are shorter, and I think the players are having much more visibility, have much more access to opportunity because of the way things have kind of shaped out. And but there's never really that big reach back to say, okay, how do we reach back to the entire population of the players to give them opportunities going forward? More so it's just those marquee names continue to be put up and placed in that spotlight.
Is there a player, someone who could represent the players? You know, you have the Players Association, and there's been a lot of questions about, you know, kind of how that's been handled and the relationship between the players, the owners. Is there a player out there that would represent what we're talking about here, maybe in the best light? Or because they always seem to get someone, you know, they had Gene Upshaw and then kind of went away from former players to, you know, I don't know who these people are, but I don't know. I know I'm just kind of throwing that at you, but is there anyone that jumps off the page that might be a good representative for players?
You know, my conversations being a business owner and entrepreneur now, the business of sports is something I could talk all day about, because for someone to represent the players, they have to have a certain high level of character and understand they can't succumb to the pressure of the politics and wanting to self-serve. You have to be willing to sacrifice your credibility with the league, with the teams, with access to certain things to do what is right for the whole. And that's the toughest part. We live in a society, we live in a world where people are, you know, they're going to, when it comes down to elevating themselves versus elevating the whole, if they're not built like that, it won't work. And too often people come in with the right ideas and the right things, but if you throw enough opportunity, enough money, enough resources or really good things to those individuals, they seem to crater and cave in.
Yeah.
And when the road gets tough, you got to be willing to stay in there for the long run. And I don't know if players can do that because they want to have so much connective tissue back to the organization and to partnerships and stuff like that. And the things that happen behind the scenes when you get into the business world, and anyone who's listening to this who understands business, they know the most egregious things are done behind the scenes. And it's done underneath the table, it's done out of sight, because they don't want that trail coming back to show that, you know, they can control situations and spots. So you got to pick and choose where you play and where you roll. And like, again, if you bring in certain players to do that, I think they can't have an attachment or have anything that's going to tie them back to, if this doesn't work out, or if I have to become the bulldog for these players, I don't have to worry about what that's going to mean to me outside of doing business with this, you know, the clubs or the organization or having access.
Could you do it?
I could do it. I could do it.
Would you want to do it?
I would want to do it if the players understand that it's about the whole. You can't get in, and that's the concern. We know how the human world works. As much as we want it to be perfect, as much as we want common sense to make sense, it won't, because people respond to emotion. They respond to whatever their personal situations are. You know, I have no problem falling down to ground zero and building back from scratch if I had to, because that's how I'm built. But not every player is built like that. Not every person's built to sacrifice for others. And could I do it? Yeah. But, you know, would I have the confidence in the other people that I would need to depend on to help carry that torch with me to do it through and through? I think it's just too many people playing it in different places that disrupt, that allows it to happen. The machine's too big, is moving too hard right now for that. And this isn't me throwing them under the bus. This is just business. You know, it's business. Yeah. You know, if anyone's in it, they understand that there's a control that the power and the most powerful ones want to have, and they're going to maintain at any you know, means necessary.
Yeah, it sure seems like, you know, the NFL's in such a great position, and kind of having that relationship with play. And I don't know that any player is going to argue with kind of the you know, the salaries and where everything is, because it's a fertile ground for everyone. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like there's kind of some nefarious things that have been going on, and players' interests haven't been completely represented, and of course it still impacts all of the rest of us who are playing. I'm sure the fans out there are like, we don't care, you know, we don't care what, you all got a good thing anyway. So I don't know. It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, but it bleeds over, man. It's one of those things where it's part of your legacy, it's part of your continue to want to do business with organizations that you've now gotten to know, because when you're in the NFL, you get to know a lot of people, you get to know a lot of operations, you get to know a lot of how it works. So it becomes a natural opportunity and relationship to do business with, but it's so selective. And like right now, if we look at the NFL and go, who's going to get the next big opportunity off the field? It's not hard to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's a game plan for that. It's a playbook for that. So it is what it is.
So I had a conversation the other day with Tom Moore, who, of course, was our offensive coordinator in Detroit when we had record-setting, led the NFL in offense, just incredible times. And it was such a great thing to do, just to chat with Tom. We hadn't talked in quite a while. He coached for 48 years, and he talked about a lot of things that I found fascinating. But one of I asked him, how his philosophy had developed over time, and one of the things that he brought up was our time in Detroit, and how he goes, he just kind of looked at me, he says, "You were in that meeting, and you know what happened, and we decided, let's put our 11 best on the field, and let's find one-on-one matchups, and we believe our people are better than other people, and let's kind of make this so it's not so complicated, and let players play." And that's what we did. And it was record setting. It was marvelous. First off, I'm just curious, what's your recollection of that time, and what are some of your fondest memories of our time together with Tom Moore and in Detroit?
But starting out, man, I have to always go back to the point of origin. That was when I was drafted in '91. And when I came in, it was an offense that was looking for an identity to get away from the run and shoot. So we had kind of a hybrid piece of that. People called it the Great Lakes offense prior to you coming in. And we were really trying to, solidify some things. We had the running game. It was always give the ball to Barry. That never changed throughout his tenure. But we were trying to find that complementary game that goes with it. So teams wouldn't, just stack the box. It wouldn't be a one-dimensional offense. And we try and move the needle. And we started to have some success. And then we figured that we get this big quarterback out of Miami, and we started to bring in different coordinators. We were bringing in different schemes. We were going to do some things differently. It obviously changed for me because I had a quarterback I could see. I had someone who had confidence. I had matured as a receiver, and that complementary piece was there. And we had pieces. We had Johnny, we had Brett, we had Dave Sloan. We started to get all these things in place. Now, you fast forward to the coordinator side of it. What I remember fondly was we start to simplify. And the simplification is what led to the greater return. And that was, if a guy's going to play off and the hitch route is available, throw the hitch. If they're going to play too deep coverage and we can find that crease and we could throw the slant and the safety's playing high enough, you throw the slant, you find the hole, right? We would throw dig routes and out routes. We would take what we wanted, but we would also use what the defense was allowing. And we would do it almost if it had to be boring. If we had to throw a hitch 10 times, we throw it 10 times. We just keep switching sides. And then me, Brett, and Johnny would bicker about who should get the next hitch route, right? Yards after the catch, we kept it in a manageable down and distance. And then we'd hope that the running game would continue to give positive runs because, as great as Barry was, it could be one that breaks free, or it could be, a couple times where we try it, but we're going to be in third and long, but that's okay. And ultimately, when you have such great players and a player like Barry that can just go from any direction, and then you got players who really wanted the ball, not guys that just wanted to be on the field. I mean, you had receivers who wanted the ball, and you had a quarterback that said, "You know what, I'm here to make a mark." We had all the perfect things in place. And just to see that all of a sudden get imploded, because again, I want to go back to the numbers game, to see it fall apart for literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And start to have it be dismantled. And then, coordinators coming in. And what I loved about Tom Moore, and it's interesting that you bring him up, and I recalled about him when we had our meeting and we all got together, it was to stop and say, listen, we're making this harder than it needs to be. And I think you were one of the main ones who brought it in and says, listen, we got to change this. This is just too complex. We just need to throw the ball. We just need to do what we need to do. And what I enjoyed was it wasn't about a certain offensive style or type as much as just it was simple. I can't explain it any differently. And it just made sense. Then after that, we started bringing in all these coordinators. Everybody's got their style. They got to put their name on it. They played under this tree and that tree, and we used these type of players, and we got to get players that fit this, that, and the other. Versus saying, no, man, you got Pro Bowlers, you got all pros, you got top guys, you got division leaders and conference leaders. Why do we need to have it model you? Why can't you be the one that adjusts? And the ones that you've seen that have come in, you look at the coordinators that travel now. If they can adjust to the people that are there and then develop around that, they're successful. Not the ones that come in and go my way or the highway, and you know who they are.
So I got to tell you a funny story. So Johnny Morton, he was the third wide receiver. So he was, he's out of USC, he's All-American. He played at USC, big deal. First round draft choice. And of course, there's Brett Perriman, who's a big deal, a phenomenal receiver. And there's Herman Moore, phenomenal receiver. Like, there's not a bad choice at all, like zero. And then you throw in Dave Sloan, Pro Bowl tight. Like, there's nobody. The only guy who didn't want to catch the ball was Barry. He says, "Look, I don't catch the ball. I just run it." Right? I even asked him.
Other than screens, man. If you look at his yardage that he got from you, man, those screens were powerful because he had receivers blocking downfield for him. Yards
per catch for Barry, man, was amazing. And Johnny was frustrated, and he's like, "Look, so he sent me his highlight tape from when he was at USC. Like, he says, I want you to see this because I don't think he thought that I thought he was any good. And so he sends me this highlight tape, and it was legitimate, and he was dead serious about it. And I watched it, and he was good. And then he goes, "Could I have my highlight tape back?" And so I was like, "Sure." And I felt bad for him because, it's like, who do you give the ball to? Like, really? And for me, I really kind of followed that kind of what you're talking about is who's ever open, whoever has the best matchup is the guy that's going to get it. And I, there's just not enough footballs to go. There's not enough downs in a game. There's not enough plays and all this stuff. And it just cracked me up, that he did this. And I always thought, that was a really funny thing, but you guys were massively competitive, and it was really fun to be a part of. And you bring up this thought about simplicity. And recently I heard Tom Brady talk about, this game isn't complicated. Like, if they're deep, throw it short. If they're short, throw it deep. I mean, it's just not, and it really isn't anything more than that. And I think people overthink it. And I think that's one of the things that really kind of got etched in Tom Moore's brain, because it's what he brought up when we talked about it. And he said he kind of carried that with him after he left, and he just had tremendous success. I mean, he just retired. He's 87 years old. It's insane. Do you think the game's changed? Is it a different? I mean, I'm talking about X's and O's. Is it different, or does it have to be simple like we're talking about?
It's the same, but it's just a hybrid now. You brought a lot of things from the collegiate level up to the professional level in terms of just the play calling and those type of things that coaches have gone in. It gives a little bit more, a little bit more flair. It gives a little bit more, but I have to be one of those guys that admittedly say, when I look at the game, it's frustrating sometimes to watch because of the soft coverage. It's frustrating to watch when you see how simple the game is. It's not about the athleticism of the players today. It's just about, in every era, you're going to move up. If we played in this era, we'd be a different, our physiques would be different. The way we train would be different. The way we eat would be different. Everything adjusts. So if you adjust up, you adjust down, right? And when I'm looking at the coverages and I'm looking at some of the things that are being done, it's hard unless a person has really played the game. And too often you get those that are just that are commentators, or those that are just speaking about it, but they've never really understood it. You can see how it's not complicated. It's a very simple game, and it's based on beating different people in front of you. It's based on running your scheme and executing. How to avoid penalties. Try not take risks when you don't have to. I mean, it's just it's a thinking game, and if you understand it, the players who get it excel. And those that are playing on emotion alone, you can't do that. The game isn't played just on emotion. It's played here. and it's played physically, and it's played with talent. It's a combination of all those things. So when I watch the game today, it's great to watch from an entertainment standpoint, but I just don't see the dynasties. I don't see where you have just through and through from the defensive line, the linebacker unit, the secondary, the defensive coordinator is a historical guy that you're facing. Think about when you're playing a team and you're looking over and you got Tony Dungy. He's not the head coach at that time. He's a defensive coordinator. He's known for his Tampa 2. And then you're looking at your linebackers and your safeties, your John Lynch and your Brooks and Hardy Nickerson, and then you got Sapp, and you got all these people. I mean, you can name names that are playing on these defensive ends, and it's even more. I'm leaving out guys, right? And then it just doesn't exist anymore. But yet we throw around the words like great and generational changing and all these things. I'm like, no, it's not. Don't do a disservice to guys, that were the pioneers of the game and those that really were impactful people who changed it. And if anything, I'd say give them their due. I'm not even speaking about myself. I'm talking about like the guys that have really, when we grew up watching, they were iconic. They were the guys that made us want to believe in the game and play the game its way. Now it's about who's the guy calling the plays. Look at that. It's the coordinator. It's the whatever. And it just takes it away from the skill set that's required by the players. And I don't think the detail is there as it used to be. And people can come for me for that. But, the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah. Well, you said a lot there. One of the things you said is about eating differently. I think I need to eat differently. I'd like to learn how to eat differently because I like it. I love the food I eat, but it doesn't agree with me. It seems to stick around for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Listen,
I just want to look like you.
Scott, how long you plan on living? I'm not trying to be morbid, but listen, I'm trying to enjoy my life, man. If you want to eat, man, eat what you want to eat.
Yeah, that's so.
Hey, I'm coming back to Utah. We're gonna get ribs. When I came out, we had ribs.
Ooh, I should smoke some ribs for you. Actually,
come on, man.
Yeah, my mom, she passed away a couple of years ago. And she was 87 when she passed away. She had a Coke every day. She drank Coca-Cola her whole life. She's just like, I mean, literally till the day she died, she was drinking Coca-Cola. So
that's like my mom. She's got to have her Pepsi every day.
Yeah, it's funny. So people ask me all the time. They're like, so who do you cheer for? Right? Do you have a team? Because I played on several teams in the league and whatever. And it's hard for me. Like, do you have a team? Like, do you enjoy watching football, or do you look at it kind of from an analytical perspective, or how do you enjoy watching professional football?
I enjoy watching matchups, and they have to be strategic. It's almost like it's become like basketball to me right now. It's like I got to have a purpose to really want to watch the game. It's got to have some type of significant meaning, and it can't just be any game and every game's going to be a great game, because it's not. I enjoy watching our receivers. I enjoy watching, in particular, the Detroit Lions receivers. I really like these guys. I really like watching the locker room and just the camaraderie that they have, watching just them, not even when they're on the field, even when they show them on the sideline, having conversations with each other, because it reminds me of, the fun parts of the game that I enjoyed when I talked to Johnny and Brett, and I would sit there with you and Barry, and we'd sit there and talk, and even in tough times, talking about how we're going to come together and pull this thing out and make it work. Those are the things that I watch the game for, is more the nostalgic and the reminding piece. The entertainment factor doesn't heat up for me until it's something really on the line, and you start to see the team, because it seems like the gear changes, right? And they play at a different level. The intensity is different. The game seems to have a little bit more meaning and purpose. So for me to be invested, I need to know that it's going to be that all, through and through, if I'm going to spend the time watching it. And I just know that it's not. Like, it's a lot of up and down depending on who you're watching, which team you're watching, and drama that goes with it. And but it's entertaining either way. I don't know about you. I like going back watching I watch probably more games of the past on demand than I watch real time.
Do you watch our games?
I've been collecting a library of those. I've been reaching out, man, to the NFL and reaching out to those who actually have access to that stuff, that say they're going to give it to us. And I'm 4 years later, man, I'm still trying. But I look to get those that footage. And then when I do watch it, and you know, you've met, you know, Chrissy on this, but
Oh.
it was more of trying to not allow it to fade. So for my legacy and for my kids, like you said, for them to have access, because once it's gone, it's gone. You know, if you don't care about it, no one else will. And you can't worry about what people think about you watching your own stuff and pulling for yourself and doing those things. If you can't be your biggest advocate in person, and you're concerned about what someone else thinks about that, then you're already behind the ball.
I've actually started watching old stuff. Like there was a long time. It's like I couldn't watch. And I started watching it. Well, man, this is pretty good.
I'll ask you this: when you watch it, do you ever do, like, one thing I've done now I've gotten older? I look back and I go, man, I wish I had done this or done that. I wish I would have. When I thought I was playing as hard, and every player can say it, right? You go back and look at film. Any player that says, you know what, I left it all on the field, you're a liar. Like there's so many things I look at and I go, man, I wish I had a different attitude. I wish I had played a little bit more intensity here. I wish I would have, you know, done a little bit more here. I wish I would have backed off there. And that's the thing I love about the character of it. When you go back and look at it, you can forgive yourself, but you can also compliment yourself at the same time, because you're really evaluating yourself with the age of the people we had that were supposed to be there trying to encourage us, how we would have done it differently, even in conversation, and think about how I spoke with a coach, or how a coach spoke to me and trying to explain to me a situation or a conflict. And you start to realize really what was good and bad about that. And then you can judge that person, yourself included, you know, as the individual, with an honest pair of eyes.
So
I know I just opened up one on you, right?
No. So I had to be careful, and I have to be careful, because if I go watch stuff and certain stuff, it will keep me up all night. And you can ask anyone that's around me, like, because it eats at me sometimes. Like, you have no idea. Like, I feel, we've talked about this before. I feel like our time was cheated in Detroit. Like, we were far better and should have gotten a whole lot more out of our time. And there were things that we had no control over, and that was hard. But going back and to answer your question, the one thing that always comes up to me is I was so bent on being like winning. And in some regards, I wished I would have let more of my personality out, and been a little bit more, because I just always felt like I was too serious about it, and to just kind of really relax and enjoy it and have fun. And that's really what my personality is like, and I just felt that I was just maybe too uptight sometimes, and could have been a little bit more, I see things of Brett Favre, you know, he goes, you got any of those left-handed footballs and some of that stuff. And he's just a goofball, you know, and I wish I would have been, but that's the one thing, I had some challenges at home and with my personal life that were hard, really hard. They were brutally hard. But I just wished I could have been more of my authentic personality and not been so just. That's definitely one thing I wish I would have changed.
Well, I realized that I'll give you this, right? I don't know if this will provide solace or not, but, you know, it wasn't an environment other than in the locker room itself. That was the only place where we could really truly be ourselves, and just kind of in our camaraderie around our teammates and around certain people, because you build your groups, right? But it was hard to operate in that environment, because you knew that whatever you were being told wasn't really always on the up and up. And, you know, when you want to live in a world of transparency, and again, being in a business and being a business owner now, I don't know any other way to be other than, you know, this is what I'm saying. You know, it's not about whether you agree with it, but it's the truth. It's the honesty. And when there are things that are being done and things that are being done, not necessarily that would, I think, benefit the team, it's self-serving, and it's right out in front. There's nothing you can do about it. Think about it. We're in our 20s. You know, I look back, I look at my son now. I got a 32-year-old son. I have a 33-year-old son. And I'm looking at those guys who have been at the ages we would have been retiring, right? And we would
Right.
consider being
Yeah.
old in the NFL. And these guys, my kids look young to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going in my 20s. We're dealing with people who are like our age or somewhere in that ballpark, because they weren't 30 and 40-year-old coaches at that time, right?
Right.
They were 50, 60, 70-year-old coaches, guys. And you would think they would have a better way of handling other than my way or the highway. That was the rule.
Yeah.
And because of that, it created so much disconnect and dissension. And you're talking to impressionable young 20-some-year-old kids that we're lost. We don't know what we're really wanting to do and how we're going to do it. And yeah, we're going to cut out, we're going to show out, but that's when you got to have people who can come in and go, listen, let me pull you to the side. Let's have a conversation. And it's not to coddle us, and it's not to sit there and kind of sit there and kind of, be that soft spot to land. But you have to be prepared. There's a prerequisite that needs to come with just beyond just coaching. There's got to be a communication piece. There's got to be a conflict resolution piece. And there's got to be another component. Coaches that have figured that out and have had the long-standing tenure, they've created culture. That's why I even say when I talk about Mike Tomlin, who I have a lot of admiration for at Pittsburgh, and the Rooneys, and when I went out and met with those families, this isn't throw anything towards any other organization. When he says the standard is a standard, then that was what I was going to now have to grow into, not the volatility of the up and down of the attitudes of the people that you're bringing who were self-serving, that were bringing things that they thought worked somewhere else, and automatically it was going to supplant. They were going to plant it here, and it's going to work. And I look back and I see how dysfunctional, I will use the word dysfunctional, it was, and yet we were still having success, if you call it that, going to the playoffs, but we couldn't get any further because the standard wasn't so much that it was to make the playoffs. It was to keep money right. It was to make sure coaches felt good about who they were and their control of this, and power pools with the ownership and all that. It's a bunch of BS, man. And I look back and I go, what a freaking waste of opportunity, time. And there weren't teams we couldn't beat, and we could not get over the threshold because people didn't realize all the crap that was going on behind the scenes. And then when we talk about it, it's like, oh, you're bitter. No, you're not bitter. You don't get it back. You don't get it back. And that's why you and I sit here as people, and we have regret, and it bothers us, and we can't let it go between now and the day we die because it's part of our fabric. And this is who we were. This is what we have waited for from youthfulness and 6-7 years old to get to the pinnacle of your sport and to become the consummate professional in that space, and then have people who are older not know how to even manage the situation and the opportunity they've been given, and then yet hold you responsible and accountable at the highest level that they won't hold themselves. Now, I'm gonna get off my table, and I will sit down with any coach that wants to sit in on this show with you and I and have those conversations of how they handle those situations. Let's see who can sniff that test now that we're adults. And now we're in the mindset of understanding you can't pull the blanket over us and just say, because I said so.
So I watched this, I guess it was America's Team. It was the documentary on the Dallas Cowboys and the Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones. And I'm watching this and I'm just like, man, you all have a bunch of first world problems. Seriously, you guys are winning Super Bowls. And you can't even be happy. And I'm just like, go play for the Detroit Lions in the 1990s and talk about real, dysfunction. I was just like, wow. I mean, and then I've watched this thing on John Elway and his family. It was hilarious. He goes, yeah, we got to go back to the Super Bowl for the 4th time. And his family didn't even want to go to the Super Bowl because he's had such a terrible time at the Super Bowl. And I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, I'd have gone to one of those Super Bowls. It's just your perspective on things. But it was very real. This isn't complaining or anything. And self-love. I know what it's about. It's about, we put our heart and soul into this. We gave everything we had. Whether you can debate about, maybe you could have given more, but I really think at the time we were all in and we just were about winning, and it was just hard to be in a circumstance when I don't know that everyone else was, or at least it wasn't well communicated. Everyone just never was on the same page with everything, and I think that for me was certainly the biggest challenge of everything.
Right. And it's definitely not beating up in any organization or people. It's just saying, you know what, there were some things that were broken, and the lack of acknowledgement by either those individuals, or even if you look back at the organization, you know, the character of a person, or character of a ownership or a business, is to accept that, you know what, we just didn't do things as best we could. And when I talked about myself personally and saying, man, I wish there were some things I could have done differently, or done a little bit better, that's like, you know, staying a little bit longer in practice, you know, going out and working with my defensive backs and seeing if we can have, you know, some time off the field, but also maybe watch film together. You know, just someone giving me those tools and that advice to say, you know what, go spend a little bit more time doing this. You know, go in here and work with the tight end, so that way maybe get in on some of the tight end drills for blocking, since I was going to be more a blocking receiver on the linebackers and stuff like that, versus, you know, you're just a big receiver. Make sure you go in and handle that safety or that backer. Like, there's so many things that are the attention to detail. I'm a stickler for detail now. I am a professional. And when you talk about being a professional football, you can't get the professional part off. Professional means you are a subject matter expert. You are skillful at what you do. You are the person that you can innovate within your position. You can do real-time conflict resolution. You can resolve. You can support. You can play your role. Like, think about that. We never did that. It was just basically shut the hell up and do what I say. Or if you got something to say and it goes wrong, we're going to blame you for it. But you know, it's like, you got to think about it, man. It was so much insecurity. And I say this in hopes that, not that it brings comfort to me or you, because I don't need it. But what it is like, listen, the reason I can enjoy the organization now, being the Detroit Lions, is because it is different. The way in which it operates is different. The way in which it goes about how it handles things is different. And it was not like that. And to try and say you're working with the same type of things, and yet you're worried about you're not addressing why you didn't get certain results. You got to ask yourself that. And then where the character then becomes, when do you come out and say, not me, not you, not the players, we didn't do something right?
If I was going to do something different, I think I would, in the off season, and I love all this stuff you're talking about, because I feel the same way about it. I would say, hey, come on, guys. I'll fly you somewhere. Let's go somewhere warm, and let's spend a week, and let's just work out. Let's just work on routes, work on concepts, work on, you know, techniques, and, you know, how to beat a technique and a route, and just kind of break down all the different routes that, and just, you know, take 5 or 6 guys and just go and just, but do it in kind of where it's just us, you know, and I wished I'd have done that every year. I wished I'd have just spent, because I went off by myself and I went to a warm, you know, I worked out and I did all this stuff, and, you know, I threw a football into a net, you know, and it was, and that's the one thing. And in fact, I wish I could do it now. I almost want to do it. I almost want to just for the heck of it, just say, let's
do it, man. I got a couple, I got some miles. We could do some miles. You know, I can use my miles. We can do it. You know, I'm asking you this, man. We were doing that back then. Would you have brought us all in on coach, or would you have brought us on first class?
Oh no, I'd have taken care of it. Come on. Oh yeah, I would.
I'm trying to remember, man. Like, did I get a watch? Did I get? Did I get a meal?
You might have got an attaboy. Attaboy. Good job.
Yeah, I think I got a couple pats on the back. I mean, I guess you rewarded me with touchdowns, so I'll take that.
But I'll make up for it. Yeah. Let's do it.
I would say, man, I just really enjoy, man, just reminiscing about it. And again, it's not a beating up on anything. It's just that as you get older, you realize some things that weren't done quite right, that people in our age group, they just didn't have the wherewithal to understand that they were void of those assets to be able to do that. That would have made it whole. And I look at a guy like Dan Campbell, and I look at the coaches that they have now, which are, you know, players and former players. And it's not just my buddy who philosophically knows how this should work, versus people who have actually been in the trenches and understand the mindset and everything. So they brought it full circle. And so now you have a good mixture of talent on the staff, along with the people in the organization. There still needs to be some diversity and some other things that go on up there, I think, that allow us to start to get a little bit more representation inside of that part of the administrative side. But on the locker room and the field side, the proven recipe has been, you got to been there, done that. You can't keep just talking to people about what they should be doing and how they should have done it when you've never done it yourself. And the respect comes from that. And so that's to the Lions, to the organizations that are doing that now, kudos. And that's why I think we're enjoying seeing the success that they're having.
Yeah, and I hope people listening, you look at a lot of situations with teams and with players, and you always go, there's just certain organizations that just never win, and you wonder. And I asked this question myself: what talent do they have in that building that wasn't really totally utilized and totally maximized? And I think the Lions are a great case study where you talk about you get it right in your organization, and it's magical how all of a sudden it starts manifesting itself on the field. We had some tremendous teams. I went to the Cincinnati Bengals, and I had great teammates there, tremendously talented teammates, and when it all isn't put together the right way, it's just kind of it's an unfortunate thing that talent isn't fully realized in situations. And I Herman and I, we certainly lived this in our careers. All right, Herman, it's just been so fun, really. It's always fun. Yeah, it's always really fun. Hope that we can do this again soon. So I'd love to have you come back. But
yeah, we'll do that next time we're doing it, man. We'll make sure you put a little bib on. I'll put a bib on. We'll sit and have our favorite food, our favorite whatever our beverage is. Man, look, come on, man. Love life, live life. You know what? We're only here for this moment in time. I appreciate you, QB1, wide receiver 1, and all the players that we played with, man, because without them, we couldn't be us. And like I said, I wouldn't change. I would change if I could some things, but for the most part, what has happened is formed who I am as a person. So, and it's given me an appreciation for how I handle situations and handle people now, given having gone through some of the things I've gone through just in life in general. So, appreciate you, man, and everything that you've done.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. Yeah, it's a great idea. We'll just have lunch and we'll invite everyone to listen in. It's a good one. All right, there he is, none other than the legendary Herman Moore. I'm telling you, he was always open, and I'm not kidding about that. It was always a pleasure to play and go to battle with Herman. We'll have to see. We're about done for the day, so thank you so much for tuning in to the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. Until then, we'll see you then.
We are Rogue Media Sports.